Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Caligoan.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date. Except for April of 2022, where we talk about movies after the first dates, because it's the month in which we met many
that's
years
right.
ago.
We didn't explain that before.
And that somehow seemed appropriate for a themed month.
Sure, you know.
So here we are.
There
and
we go.
This time I was made to watch Lady Bird.
Yes, it's the movie that made me say, not for the first time, my God, I was awful as a teenager, and I owe my mother an apology, and made me cry a little bit. It is the 2017 it's not a comedy. It's funny, but it's not a comedy. It's sort of a memoir, sort of a reflection on Catholic school life and mothers and daughters and coming of age and all that stuff. Directed and written by Greta Gerwig and stars tons and tons of people. Saoirse Ronan, Laurie Metcalf, Tracy Letts, Beanie Feldstein, Lucas Hedges, Timothy Chalamet, and a bunch of other people that I recognize but couldn't tell you their names. So lots and lots of people.
Metcalf?
Huh?
You say Laurie Metcalf?
I did. I said her second.
Oh, okay, sure.
You weren't paying attention.
I was trying to remember where I know Greta Gerwig from. Where do I know that name from?
The most recent Little Women.
Maybe.
And I don't know what. Frances Ha, which I never saw, but was probably good.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe I just know her from that name's just very familiar.
Yeah. So this is, I'm going to guess, a little bit autobiographical because Gerwig herself is from Sacramento, where this is set, and it's set in the school year of 2002 to 2003, where it's the main character's senior year of high school, which is approximately how old Greta Gerwig is. I don't know if any of the plot points are autobiographical, but yeah. I imagine this is somewhat drawn from life. So
this is as autobiographical as your upcoming novel will be.
Don't sell me out like that. Come on.
Yeah, you said this movie set in like 2002.
Yes.
Man, this is like a 2002 ass movie. Like it was made in 2017, but this is just like put this alongside Garden State and Juno and Ghost World. Just put this along the like earnest indie, mostly female-centered movies of sort of the early 2000s up until like 2005 or 6 maybe. Yeah, like put this right there with those because it fits right.
Possibly, yeah.
Fits right in. So it's like someone made a 2002 indie teen drama
was completely
in
ripped
2017.
It's a period piece in all ways.
Yes.
Well, let me read you the description from Google Play, and this is interesting that it's written this way. A nurse works tirelessly to keep her family afloat after husband loses his job. She also maintains a turbulent bond with a teenage daughter who is just like her, loving, strong-willed, and deeply opinionated. That is not the description that I would have written for this movie because it places the mother as the main character.
Yeah, so it frames the
daughter
character.
Well, I don't think that is necessarily wrong. But even now, seeing this as, I'm a mother, I still don't feel like the mother is the main character. Sometimes that happens. You watch something as a teen and clearly the teens are the main characters. And then you watch it 20 years later and you're like, oh no, it's totally, I don't see it that way. So, but yeah, flip it around. And I would say that the daughter is the main character played by Saoirse Ronan. Her birth name is Christine. She has chosen to go by Lady Bird at this point in her life, which cracks me up. Because I also tried to change my name.
Did you know?
Well, I didn't change the actual name. I changed the spelling.
You changed the spelling of your name? Have I heard this story before?
I thought you had.
Maybe I have.
So my name is spelled Marian. Well, everybody thinks it's Marianne or Mary, or someone said Marsha one time, and I was just like, this is stupid. I'm going to change the spelling. So it was Marienne. Well, that didn't help matters. I think
it's like a 19th century school
well,
bar.
It's closer to Marianne. It's one letter off from it, so it didn't have. So I think it was like 6 or 7 months that I did this.
Sure.
And then I stopped. But I was about this age. There is so much about this character that resonates with me.
Yeah, it seems like it would. Just from watching the movie, like it very much seems.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think I said in our Romy and Michelle episode that my senior year of high school, I was like a coiled spring. I just want to get the hell out of my small town, and I was going to go where, I mean, and Lady Bird says, there's culture and all this, that's where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I quite achieved what I wanted, but I got out of my hometown. So
yeah, I think we all, and I think this is something that the movie kind of ruminates on. Like you think that the place that you live is not special and uncultured, but then someone remarks that when she writes about Sacramento, it's like she loves it. I think, oftentimes you don't realize how special the place you're from is until you go away, because you just think this is so lame and it's dumb. And yeah.
Well, and I thought that was interesting. She says, well, I just pay attention. And then it's her guidance counselor, the nun at school, says, well, aren't those the same thing?
Yeah.
Which is a way of talking about love that I don't think a teenager would ever consider about people or places or, and she's thinking romantic love. And you and I in our 40s know that love is more than that. But, well, hold on. So let's step back a bit. So the synopsis, this is essentially her senior year in high school, Christine's. And her family is, I don't know, struggling. Lots of money problems. And her father is something in programming or engineering or something. And he is laid off rather undramatically in about the first third of the movie. And her mother's a nurse and is working multiple shifts. And her brother and the brother's girlfriend live with them. And they went to Berkeley, as we keep being reminded, but work in a grocery store. So their trajectory changed a little bit. And Christine goes to a Catholic high school because it's supposedly better than the public high school. They're not Catholic, but it's, I saw this a lot at my Catholic high school. People were like, well, clearly we can't go to the public school because that's bad. So we'll go here instead. And I think it's an all girls school, but it's like they have a all boys school right next door. And
it seems like it's probably like under the same church or whatever they have, but they separate boys because when they have mass or whatever, boys are on one side, girls are on the other.
Yeah.
And they have theater class together.
Yeah. And I guess that happens a lot where they do the extracurriculars and stuff. I'm used to, my school was co-ed, but I'm used to if there are sibling schools, they're like miles from each other but anyway, so. It's so if Catholic school uniforms are your thing, there are a lot here. There's lots of plaid skirts and polos and sweater vests and blazers and all these things. And there are nuns teaching them.
Yes.
When people who are not Catholic find out that I went to Catholic school, that's one of the things that they ask me. Did you have nuns as teachers? And I have to say, no, we didn't. We had a couple of nuns as substitutes.
Yeah.
And the principal of my high school was a priest at the time. The principal at the time was a priest.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, let me diagram that sentence. So there were priests and nuns around, but most of our teachers were what they call lay people. Anyway, not the point. So it takes us through the year. She has what I guess is her first boyfriend. He turns out to be gay. Heartbreak ensues, and she is adorable with her best friend, Julie, played by Beanie Feldstein. And so she breaks up with the boyfriend. She really wants to go away to college somewhere else, which also completely relate to. She is trying to do these extracurriculars and bring her grades up and stuff so she can get into other schools. She only gets into UC Davis, which she deems as beneath her. I don't know the California system, but it's 30 minutes away from home.
Getting into UNC Wilmington or something.
Well, I imagine
Asheville.
I imagine it. Well, she says it's 30 minutes away, which I imagine that's the thing. Because if you want to get away from your high school, going to school 30 minutes away from home, not going to do it.
Yeah. Also to a school with a low bar, so like a lot of people from your high school can probably get into that school.
Yes. No, I completely. Yeah, it would be like going to UNC Charlotte here, like,
Yeah.
Which may be a fine school. I don't know. But it's the hometown school, so you don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And then she has her second, she kind of remakes herself in order to hang out with the cool kids and this cool guy who is a super pretentious douchebag.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But she doesn't see it. And they end up having sex. And then she realizes that he's not really interested in being a boyfriend. He's just interested in being himself and getting whatever he can get. She finds out that she's waitlisted to one of the schools she applied to. She has not been telling her mother this the whole time.
Right.
She's kind of working with her dad to make this happen. And, please don't tell mom. And the dad has to be this kind of middle person. At the day of her graduation, one of her friends lets it slip that she's waitlisted, and her mother is furious and basically spends the summer not speaking to her. But she goes off to school in New York City, and then has, a rocky first couple days. And then at the end of the movie leaves her mother a message that is essentially, I'm sorry, I love you. I appreciate a lot of things about you. And it this sort of ends. So it's not really a put a bow on a type of ending, but it's
a 2002 indie teen coming of age. So like it's 100%. It is, look off into the camera, middle distance, cut hard cut to black. Yeah. Credits roll with some indie pop
soft
song.
Indie. Yeah. Yeah. Well, back to what you were saying before, I had written in my notes, love, hate with your hometown, which I honestly can relate to. I mean, I've mentioned several times, and I did just now, I wanted to get the hell out of my hometown.
Yeah.
Well, my parents still lived there after I left. My dad is still there. And I would go back and think, oh, this is kind of nice. And this is kind of nice. And, there are things that I like about it. I think on balance, I still would never want to live there, but I didn't ask you what you thought of it.
What?
This is not your opinion that matters here. But it's, the longer I'm away from it, the more I can see the nice things about it. Now, my hometown is nothing compared to Sacramento. I assure you that Sacramento has a lot more to offer than my hometown does. But I definitely get that. That's a sign of your growing up, is when you're able to look at a place that you're from and go, oh, okay, well, there were some nice things about this.
Yeah, that's just growing up in general. Yeah. Like you do that with people, you do that with places, experiences. Yeah. Totally.
I did, however, I did not have that epiphany until much later than Christine does. Yeah. I spent the entire, my entire Christmas break of my freshman year in college making a little mosaic in MS Paint where I colored in each little pixel. Wow. To spelled out, I hate my hometown.
Wow, cool.
Had a lot of time on my hands. We didn't have the internet.
Yes.
Wasn't a thing.
Kids.
So
remember.
Had we had the internet, I would have been on Discord or whatever.
Usenet.
Yeah. Talking about how much I hated it.
Hit me up on my ICQ number. 1487. That's as much as I can remember.
I don't even. That's all lost on me because I didn't. I didn't. Yeah.
You didn't do ICQ?
No, I was.
Man, that was like a revelation. Like, like there was this time with the internet, and this is totally off subject, but there was this time with the internet where like the question on everybody's mind, this was most of the 90s. I got on the internet in like 92, 93. Early days, like my first internet experience was browsing on a text-based web browser. I was using Usenet for news groups and using FTP and to download files. And I was using all of those other protocols that were as a collective referred to as the internet. And no one was really sure what the internet was for until like the 2000s, like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the late 90s, ICQ came along, and there was also, I believe it was predated by a program called Powwow. But ICQ was the one that became popular. And this idea that you could see when other people were online and you could chat to them in a way that before had been reserved for like people who were literally on AOL and CompuServe and these other platforms that were like social first and content second. If you were just on the raw internet, you were just going to websites and, you know, searching for stuff on Alta Vista and Ask Jeeves and stuff. Like the internet was a mystery of like, how is this going to come together if not on a service like AOL or something that's facilitating all this extra stuff? And yeah, like ICQ was just, it was mind blowing. Just, it was amazing. Yeah. If you didn't experience that part of the internet, those early days, like, it's difficult to understand how pointless the internet seemed for the first 5 to 10 years of its existence.
Yes. When I think about the internet of my college years, which was 95 to 99, I mean, it's basically a desert with tumbleweeds blown around and the occasional cactus. Like, I remember looking around and realizing that Walmart had a website, and I was like, why? Why does Walmart need a website?
Right. I mean, it was ICQ and the advent of MP3s. Like, those were the things that really like brought everything together.
See, I was out of the dorms by that point, so I missed all that stuff. It's the internet. Anyway,
2000, because it was 2002, and this thing, it made me think of nostalgia for the early crappy internet, which the internet is not a part of this at all.
No, it's not.
Which is interesting.
Well, I was actually kind of surprised that the family has an internet-enabled computer.
They do. Like, there is one little bit that's like, hey, the internet exists.
Yeah. No, I was surprised that they had that, though. But
by 2002, I feel like everybody had some level of internet access by 2002.
Maybe.
Because by that point, everybody had gotten a Dell or a Gateway.
Okay. Well,
you know, because they had been convinced like, oh, it's good for your kids' homework or whatever.
Yeah.
So everybody had one, and they all came with modems, and, you know, everybody had gotten free trials of AOL by 2002.
Oh, that's true. All the CDs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was one thing that I could relate. Another thing that I could relate to about this is all the little economies that are just built into life when you're trying to be thrifty.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the movie, Christine's parents are dropping her off at the airport so she can fly to college. And her mom lets her and her dad off at the curb. And Christine says, "You're not going to come in?" And her mom says, "No, parking's too expensive. I'll just drive around." And, you know, which is her real reason is she just doesn't. She's like very hands off with Christine at this point. She's,
right.
You know. But I was like, that's completely a thing that I could have seen my family doing. Like there were just economies was just built into everything.
Yeah, it's a very genuine thing, but in this moment, it's completely not genuine.
Right.
Yeah. Like,
right.
But yeah,
but
like I
under
get what you're
different
saying.
circumstances, she could be doing that, and like, okay, we'll say our goodbyes here. Like, I get it. I'll just, you know, and there were a lot of other things.
They shop at the thrift store.
Yeah.
That you notice, and she's buying like her prom dress or whatever. There's like a sign that's like, you know, red tag is 50% off, purple tag's like 60% off, whatever.
When I noticed she's trying on the prom dress, and she comes out and she looks herself in the mirror and she says, "Oh, do you like it?" And her mom takes this like fraction of a second glance at the price tag.
Yeah.
Kind of like, well, if it's $20 or more, I can't like it. I got to find something, you know, like just all these economies that were all just part of your life, and you don't even think about it until you meet people who don't do them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's definitely not an experience that I had. And I know it is sort of an experience that you had, but it is very weird. The things that people choose to prioritize, which effectively put them into a lower social or economic class, not social, economic class than they actually need to be. By choosing to send her to private school, they are putting themselves into a worse financial situation, but they're prioritizing it in a way because they think it's one of the most important things.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's something that as a character, she's not able to appreciate at this point. I'm sure at some point she does, but yeah, it's always funny to see the things that, you know, it's almost always depicted with when you have a family that's in this position that they are like trying to sacrifice in some way so that the next generation has it better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 100%. All of this frugality is in part because they're sending her to private school, but also it's all to facilitate her ending up with a better life.
In part also because the dad lost a job.
But that happens like,
sure.
The frugality's there before.
Well, yes, I would say it's even more critical
Yeah, yeah,
afterward.
but it doesn't. I don't see an increase suddenly in that level. It's not like all of a sudden there's belt tightening.
Well,
You know, like yeah, he loses his job, and that's important within the dynamic of the family. But yeah, like it doesn't seem like all of a sudden they get more frugal because he loses his job.
Yeah.
It feels to me like that level of frugality was there before.
can we talk about the dad for a second?
Yeah, he's great.
My heart hurts for him so much. And so Tracy Letts is the actor that plays the dad. And the first thing that I saw him in, I want to say it was Homeland. He was clearly a villain.
Yeah.
And he made such a strong impression that I have a hard time seeing him as a not villain. But he's kind and he's warm, and he is this mediator between his wife and his daughter, who I think it's said plainly, they're so much alike that they butt heads, which my father has said to me about me and my mother. You have said to me about me and our son.
Yes.
And I noticed at some point in my, I don't know, late teens or my 20s, that my dad was kind of willing to be mediator, but he was not going to badmouth my mom to me.
Sure, yeah.
And I hope he didn't badmouth me to my mom. I don't know. But it made me realize, like, that's a really tricky position to be in when you're in the middle.
It is.
And I think that this dad, I mean, now he's keeping information from his wife, which I don't know if that's wise. But it's just lovely. And I just want to give him a hug. And this whole time while he's dealing with this stuff, he is trying to find a new job and is coming up against ageism. And at a point, it turns out that he and his son are up for the same job, and his son gets it. And, the dad is just really lovely. Like it's just like, go get him. Great. And you don't know what he's going to do, but he's going to figure it, he's going to figure it out. We hope, just the way that Christine is going to figure out her stuff in her new phase of life. Like, And he and Laurie Metcalf as the mom are just they're both wonderful.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I don't think I would like to know the mom.
No. Like, she's.
Although perhaps I wouldn't like to know her because I see a lot of there was a lot of stuff that came out of her mouth that sounded very familiar.
Yeah.
And the scenes between her and Lady Bird are so well done, because you see, like, they're having a tender moment, and then somebody says something offhand, and then somebody responds, and it escalates, and back and forth, and all of a sudden you're in a fight, and you're like, 5 minutes ago we were having what happened? And I have been on both sides of that, and it sucks, and you hate it while it's happening, but you can't undo it, and it's just, I'm really terrified about the teenage years, I gotta say.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're gonna be great.
Yeah.
But she's definitely, the mom is definitely it's one of those things, like I think there's something that happens in a family where eventually through the generations it gets sorted out, but it takes some time. But when you have a sort of traumatic upbringing in some way, and she mentions that her mother was an abusive alcoholic, like the first generation after that doesn't recover 100%. Mm-hmm. She is trying her best, and it's a story as old as time. You see, like, she is giving what she thinks is the necessary love that she wanted and she didn't have, but it's too much, and it's not what her child wants, and it's not what's appropriate for the situation. It takes a few generations to work out those sort of traumatic kinks, to get to a point where you finally have an equilibrium, mother and child pairing or father and child pairing, where you're giving the child not what you didn't have, but what you think they need, but what they actually need. Yeah. And it takes time to realize that, because especially when you're coming from a position where you were lacking things that you think, if I'd only had this, if my mother had only given me this, or my father had only given me this, our relationship would have been better, or I would have been better. So you heap that on the next generation, and it turns out it's not really what they wanted or needed, and you missed all of these things. Like, she is doing all these things that are very demonstrable, like providing and sending her to a good school because someone got stabbed in front of her brother in the other school, and doing all these things that she thinks is setting her daughter up for success. But she's not doing the main things that would actually set her daughter up for success if she'd stop and listen to the daughter. But also, some of it turns out to be what the daughter needs anyway.
Well, at the
so
same time,
it's always that like snaking, labyrinth of
Well, and fast forward 10, 15 years. If when Christine has kids, is she going to be, my parents we didn't have material things, so let me do that to make up for every generation is making up for something.
100%. Yeah, we were super poor. I don't want to say super poor, like we were fine. It was me and my mom, but we had a lot of disadvantages. A previous husband had ruined her credit, so there was a lot of things that we just couldn't have. We could have a phone for years because of the damage that was done to her reputation with the phone company. We couldn't have all these things. Yeah, so immediately I'm just like, like offhand the other day, our kid mentioned, he might like a Polaroid camera because he saw it in a movie. And I was like, that night I was on Amazon looking for Polaroid cameras, like, I can get him this and this. Okay, this is only gonna be $150 for all this. And had to stop myself. Like,
I'm glad you did. That was a little,
But
honestly,
I could have never had that. Like, I would have said that, and my mom would have been like, well, maybe Christmas, Christmas.
And that would have been the one thing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I, my family was extremely thrifty by choice. We were honestly the family who was doing all these economies so that in our case, it was so my brother and I could go to Catholic school, and my parents saved for their retirement and our college. And, and now looking back, I'm incredibly grateful. But at the time, like when I was, 10, 12, I wanted to go on, quote, real vacations like everybody else and be able to buy books instead of going to the library and all this.
Right.
And, and I noticed myself making up for that a little bit with our son and with myself. And there's a cartoon that I saw years ago. I may have told you about this. It was in the New Yorker or something like that. This woman is speaking to the, quote, the camera. And she says, when my daughter was born, I resolved I was going to raise her totally different than my mother raised me. My mother was strict. I was going to be permissive. My mother, And then the last panel, she kind of looks at you sort of ruefully and she says, now my daughter is grown up and she's just like my mother.
Yeah.
Which it's like, I think parenting is a pendulum through the generations and it swings back and forth, but it's on all these different angles. And so you're never going to get all of it exactly right.
Oh yeah. No way.
But anyway, I noticed that line about, my mother was an abusive alcoholic, and I was like, this has informed everything. And that probably is part of why, and the father knows that and probably met her mother. And that's why he is not going to bag on, your mother is awful to Christine, because he knows where she's coming from.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting how these things shape us in what we consider giving love and showing love. Like, there isn't a lot of affectionate love expressed between the mother and daughter. Mm-hmm. And I know, like, she's a teen, like she's 17 or whatever, like, but I hope that relationship it was very different between me and my mom. Like, there was a lot of affectionate love well into my late teens. And I hope that will maintain the same with our child. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of that, but the mother was guaranteed from her perspective showing love by all of the things that she was doing and providing.
Well,
and sometimes that's not what,
like the nun said, love sometimes is paying attention,
right, exactly,
which I would say that Christine's mother is not paying attention to the things that Christine wants her to pay, but she's paying attention to things like a good school and a prom dress and getting the uniform, Yeah,
well, she's there, right? She's showing up. And I think that's like a big, that's one of those moments in the movie where they're like, in case you weren't getting this, like, here's...
Well, but also I think that's, if you're watching this and you're 17, you're like, whatever, I don't care about this nun. But now when you're our age, you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it is. I mean, that's this movie is about a lot of stuff. And I think that's one of the things that it's about is like the love you want to give versus the love someone wants to receive, because it plays itself out in her relationships, in Lady Bird's relationships with her mom or with boys or with friends. you know, all around.
Speaking of the relationships with the boys and with her friends, can we talk about the whole school? Oh my God, I was dying at some of these like sly little. I'm assuming that Greta Gerwig went to Catholic school because some of these, like, you just don't.
Too good. Like,
Yes.
You wouldn't know.
Like, there's a point where Christine and her best friend are in the back of the chapel or whatever, just eating unconsecrated communion wafers as a snack.
That's pretty
which
funny.
is a very unsatisfying snack, I have to say. They are not good.
Yeah.
They're really just bland. It's like cardboard. It's not meant to taste good.
Right.
But except for my college church, we used actual flatbread
Yeah.
that someone in the parish made, and it had honey in it, and it was so good. And I remember thinking, I want to make this and like have it for breakfast.
Yeah.
Like,
Can I have the Lord's body?
yeah, but it's not. It's
some
not until
jam
it's
on it?
consecrated. Well, and I have the recipe somewhere because
Ooh,
they
nice.
laid the recipe out on the table for like, if you would like to take part in this ministry, and so I have it somewhere. So I could do that, but that always
Please.
felt vaguely sacrilegious. I did not do that, but I could.
Yeah.
But yeah, the communion wafers as snacks, and the assembly where they're having a pro-life speaker. I'm just like, oh God, yes, I remember all of this. And
Very authentic.
they're at the dance, and the nun is like 6 inches apart, leave room for the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
I'd never experienced that, but that is the trope that happens at Catholic schools. And the one girl who's got her skirt super short, that's hers looked like it was actually short. What we did at my school was you would fold over the waistband. So when you needed it to, it could be dowdy and down to your knees, and then you would roll it once or twice or maybe 3 times.
Oh,
Ooh.
to take a little, a little risk, get a little risque. Yeah.
Show off some thigh. Yeah.
Yeah. And I even watching it, I could kind of see and think to myself, like, I bet you can appreciate a lot of this. It's like any movie where they're setting it inside of something you're familiar with.
Yeah.
You know, like, as someone who's familiar with Catholic school, I find this so much funnier.
Yes.
Yeah. But I was definitely chuckling at it.
Well, yeah, you've been around me long enough that you got some of the.
And some of it's tropey,
stuff.
like some of it is, it's like playing into the tropes and stuff. So yeah, some of it worked on that level.
Yeah. I did not understand what was going on with the priest who was originally the drama coach, the play director, and then he just sort of disappears.
Yeah,
I mean, didn't get that.
Yeah, felt like maybe self-harm.
But I mean, it didn't feel resolved, and it didn't. I don't know. I didn't.
Well, they lay down the thing that he has maybe before he was a priest, he had a family and the son died, and they do a contest in drama class of who can cry first, and he breaks down really easily. Yeah. And then later, the only thing you get is he's not there, and the football coach is in charge of drama. Yeah. And you see, and he shows up with
Christine's mom, and she's a psychiatric nurse. I know, but I don't know. It was one of those threads where I was like, wait, what? I feel bereft here. What happened? Yeah. I don't understand.
Also, hilariously, that actor plays Foofer in the new Dune, which Timothée Chalamet is also in.
Yeah.
So the guy with the stained lips and the crazy eyebrows in Dune, he plays that guy. But in the new Dune. Yeah. So it was like,
boy, that's
Foofer's here.
Okay, so speaking of Timothée Chalamet, oh my, what a pretentious dickhead.
It's very perfectly like time and place, 2002, and so completely. He's such a complete dick because he's all of his view. He almost immediately contradicts all of the things that he espouses.
Well, and he's such a caricature. He's I'm a maverick and I'm unique, but there is a boy like him at every single high
He's
school.
playing right out of the rebel, unique, brainy, sensitive kid playbook.
Well, and like a lot of things that he says and does, I knew someone who said and did those things, and like kind of insufferable. And he's when we've one of the first conversations that Lady Bird has with him, he's sitting at a coffee shop smoking. It turns out he rolls his own cigarettes.
Of course.
And reading Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States. I have that book in our house. I've never read it. I bought it because I was like, I will read this someday. It seems like a thing I should read. And now I just want to get rid of it. Like, I don't want to have it because it's going to, taint me. But his whole thing about, I don't want to participate in the economy.
Yeah.
I just don't like money, which is real easy to say when you have a lot
you're rich,
of money. Yeah.
Also, he goes on a thing about how cell phones are tracking chips, and then later in the movie answers his own cell phone in the car.
Yeah.
In of course, the nice car that his parents got him. That is, it's very much rich, rich D-bag.
Yeah.
Playing the sensitive, worldly. Yeah. It's great. It's great. And like, he just plays it really well, like just really aloof.
Well,
like,
I gotta say, because Timothée Chalamet is kind of a pretty boy, part of me wonders how much of that is acting. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say yes, a lot of it is acting. And I also like the thing of like, oh, you're finding. So he and Christine have sex, and then afterwards she says, "Oh, we lost our virginities to each other," and he's like, "I didn't. No, that wasn't my first time." And she gets upset. And he says, "You're finding reasons to be upset. And how many people have you slept with?" "I don't know, maybe 6. Yeah. She's like, "You're in high school. How do you not know?"
How do you not know the number?
Yeah. I think at that point in high school, I could tell you how many people I had how many people I had kissed. It was 1. So it was easy to know. But I find that troubling that someone who's 17 doesn't know how many people they've slept with. You haven't had that long to build up a high number.
But it also plays right into the group that he rolls in and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that disconnect of she thinks they're having a relationship and a connection, and he's just like, "Oh, we're just having sex. No big deal."
Yeah.
Oh, that's so painful to watch.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. She has horrible luck with men.
Yeah. Well, the first one is a really nice guy, just gay.
Yeah, it just turns out to be gay.
And he's like, she says, "You can touch my boob." And he says, "Oh, I respect you too much."
Respect you so
Which is just, if anyone says that, run. Like, it's possible to respect me and touch my boob. It's fine.
Right. Yes, you've been given permission. So respectfully touch the boob.
Yeah. Yeah. You can do it with respect. Yeah.
What else you got? Any big things we got to hit? Hey, this is your movie, so I want to make sure you get to talk about all and ask about or.
I know. Well, I think so there are a lot of kids at Lady Bird School who are wealthy.
Yeah.
And there's a real class divide, which sort of becomes apparent over time. So Kyle, Timothée Chalamet, is one of the wealthier kids, and her first boyfriend, Danny, is another one of them. And then she becomes friends with this cool girl, Jenna, and that's another one. And that's not something that I ran up against in high school because I just didn't, I don't know.
Is that because no one in your hometown is rich?
There are wealthier people there. We were kind of in the middle. We lived in a nicer neighborhood, but we were extremely frugal. So, nobody was going to say that I lived on the wrong side of the tracks, but it wasn't a fancy house either. So, but I can relate to that more in college. Like, I went to a fancy pants school, and I didn't even realize how much money a family could have until I was there with my classmates, and I tried to spend like them, and it didn't go well. And, but you see, like, you don't see Christine spending money like her classmates, but you see her trying to live like them. And I think there is sort of a lack of ambition with a lot of the wealthier kids that she meets. And I don't know if that's meant to be a commentary on class status.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it is, because those kids are all going to get into good schools because they're legacy whatevers. Mm-hmm. So they're not. It doesn't matter necessarily how hard they work in high school, because their connections are going to get them into good schools, which they're going to, manage to somehow get through and get good jobs, and because of their connections. And I mean, it's a good juxtaposition between the attitudes of the rich kids and the attitudes of the not rich kids who seem to have to work very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's generally true. I mean, depending on how it goes, you can cruise. You can be a rich person who works very hard. You can also be a rich person who cruises through on connections.
Yeah.
But you can't be a poor person or a middle class, lower middle class, whatever they were, person who cruises through on connections.
Well, you can cruise, but you will not get anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was sort of heartbreaking to hear. So Jenna is sort of the rich girl friend. And she says, "Oh, I love Sacramento. I want to live here, and my daughters will go to the same school." And she's not wanting to go away to college, and and just you're just like, really?
Well, because she's already she's already at the pinnacle, right? Like she has a tanning bed in her house. Like, like what more could you want? Like, but I do think that can be a problem. I mean, you when you have all of that stuff, you hear about all these different ways that rich people parent their kids, don't give them any money, tell them who is it? Bill Gates or whoever's like his kids aren't getting anything.
Yeah.
One of them, one of those super rich people.
I think that's him. Yeah.
It's like your kids aren't getting nothing. Like they gotta make themselves and they'll have no problem making their own way in the world.
And I think not giving my kids anything is like after their school is paid for and they have a car and an apartment. Yeah. He means like
they always have a place
no trust funds.
Right, exactly. They're not going to have these billions after.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's I think you've got all these different ways that you can choose to raise your kids when you're wealthy, and you don't have all those different ways when you're not wealthy. Like you got to train them to raise them to scrap and claw and work for everything that they're going to get, and et cetera, et cetera.
Well, it's sort of. This is maybe not exactly 100% correlation, but so you had a twin bed your entire childhood, right? Into young adulthood. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
As did I.
You know that.
I do.
You know about my twin bed.
I'm expositing for the listeners.
Sorry. Yeah. I had a twin bed.
Yeah. I was never in your bedroom pre-marriage.
You've never seen my bed or been in this?
No. We were never horizontal.
No.
Not
at all.
Anyway, I know a lot of parents now when their kids are like, I don't know, 6, they're like, "Oh, a twin bed's too small. You need a queen."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, no, we want to give them something to aspire to.
Right.
Don't make their high school life or their college life, frankly, too cushy. And I hear about dorms today, and they've got, a kitchen on every floor, and you can get,
these kids today,
everything is very plush.
They're dormitories. They're basically apartments.
And I'm just like, but Christine's dorm room, by the way, is tiny. Like it's smaller than I remember my dorm room being. Like there's about 2 feet between the beds.
Yeah.
Which is what you should have in college. You should have some reminder of like, here's what I'm working for to graduate and get a job and afford more than this.
Yeah. I don't have any real experience with college dorms. I have been in the dorms at UNC Charlotte, at least one of them. Mm-hmm. And it was the style where it's like a common room.
Oh, yeah.
And then there are very small bedrooms adjacent to it. So it was like, 5 rooms and, one little common area.
That's not really luxury.
No, it wasn't luxurious at all.
But yeah, when you talk, Jenna's got a tanning bed in her house, and she has a big fancy car and all this, and and
a pool and all.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a very cushy life, and she's not being challenged to want more. And so
and I think she's responding in kind of by not wanting more than what she already has.
Yeah, and I think it's possible to coach your kids to want more while they have, as we say in our house, everything you need and a lot of things you want.
Yeah.
But her parents didn't do that.
No,
so,
no.
I don't know. So maybe my parents were doing it right by some light deprivation. Like we didn't have a pool and didn't go to Disney World. And
now you also didn't have a twin bed growing up.
I did. I had a twin. What?
The one in your room was not a twin bed.
That's not what I grew up with.
Okay. Well, whenever you got that fancy pants bed,
that was after I left.
Oh, okay. They put that.
They added a lot of things after I left.
Nice.
Let's see. They didn't have the internet.
Yeah.
When I left, I don't think they had a VCR.
But
maybe
you left. You left. When did you leave?
1995.
Yeah. very few people had the internet in
Okay.
1995.
Okay. I'm just, what? Well, so the most galling thing. So when I was growing up, we didn't buy milk from the store. We bought dry milk,
Oh, yeah.
which is like a powder, and you mix it with water. And it doesn't taste very good when it's warm.
No.
You have to put it in the fridge for like a couple hours, and then you can drink it. After a while, I was like, I don't really like drinking this. It's cereal or
It's fine in cereal.
whatever.
Yeah, it's fine in stuff. Yeah.
It was more economical and it was more nutritious, apparently. Well, at some point,
Fortified.
they switched. They switched to liquid milk because liquid milk was cheaper.
Sure.
But I go to their house now, and I'm like, "Where you have the good milk now? Where was this when I was living here? I don't understand."
They were making the choices so that you could go to your fancy private school.
Right. Yes.
Come
So,
on, geez.
dry milk and whole wheat bread and a cold house so that I could go to college, which is, in retrospect, it's kind of a fair trade-off. But at the time I was, but yeah, little economies add up.
Yes.
This is why I insist on turning all the bottles upside down to get the last couple tablespoons out.
Lord.
That's
the amount in our relationship, in our time together, the amount of turn upside down bottles that I've thrown away
I know.
with whatever half tablespoon left in them,
And that's why our kid's not going to be able to go to college.
anytime you open the door to the refrigerator, 3 or 4 bottles of salad dressing or mustard or whatever fall over because they're just very barely balanced in there, and then they get thrown away. And the amount of cut in half bottles that are inserted back into themselves.
Let me tell you, I have a tube of toothpaste that there's probably 2 or 3 days worth left in there. I cut it open 2 weeks ago. Couldn't get any more out by squeezing, and I've been getting a lot out by that's over time. That's a whole other tube of toothpaste that I didn't have to pay for.
Wonderful.
I'm just saying.
She's going to get that mosquito. This cat she's really
One of
trying
these
to get
days
this
we're
mosquito.
going to need to do a vlog so you can see the cat.
Right. She's trying to get this mosquito real hard.
Oh my God, she's trying to climb the wall for real.
Yeah, she really is. It's pretty cool.
If she could dig her claws into drywall, we would.
Oh, she'd be up there.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think that's.
I got one thing. So Julie is a great character.
Yes.
The best friend.
Yes.
And this is very the relationship between them is very Ghost World. It's just you don't get a lot of positive female friendships in movies in general.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole arc with them is very Ghost World. It's they split apart because of something. They come back together in the end and realize that they're what's going on with her and the math teacher? What's up with that?
Yeah.
That was very. I wanted that to resolve.
Yeah.
And it never resolved.
That was another. Yeah, that's similar to the depressed priest. That was another
my favorite line is when he's giving back the test and he gives her a test and he says, "Great job, Julie." Or he says, "Jules."
Yeah.
"Great job, Jules. I could tell even on the ones you got wrong that you understood them." What?
Which is such a teacher thing to say. No, it means you just had a tiny arithmetic mistake.
But
yeah.
It's just very creepy, and there's just very she at one point, a very extremely minor plot point that doesn't also get resolved at all. Lady Bird throws away his grade book.
Yeah, and he lies about her grade, which he totally knows that she's doing.
Oh yeah. But he's asking them to come up and remind him of their grade.
Yeah.
And Julie comes up as A-, and he's like, "I seem to remember more like an A." And she's like,
"Well,
"Oh, okay."
I gotta say, this guy he looks like he was a basketball player, fraternity guy, blonde, sun-kissed man in an all-girls school. Dude, you gotta be better than that.
Very pregnant wife at home. Yeah. He was cruising for something there. There was something, there was a plot line there that didn't get resolved. I feel like.
Well, and I think Julie's got a little bit of a crush because after she meets his wife, she just sits down and she's like, which is, kind of at 17, that's okay if you don't act on it.
Yeah.
But
also there's a point where this teacher is at a party or a club where a band is playing.
Oh, yeah.
And a bunch
Yeah,
of
yeah.
like it's mostly high school students
Yeah.
there, and he's there.
Yeah.
At like total like red flags left and right with this guy.
That's kind of like, did you ever see the Crucible Cast Party skit on SNL?
I don't think so.
Oh, it's fabulous. You, as a former theater kid, you would like it. Anyway,
Nice.
there's a line where it's kind of weird that the teacher came to the Crucible Cast Party.
Yeah.
The teacher looks nowhere near as cool as this Golden
Yes.
Boy
Oh, no,
teacher.
definitely
But anyway, what the hell?
not. Say the cast.
Okay.
This is an unfortunate feature of the next couple of podcasts. Probably is there's going to be cat noise because she was asleep the whole time we were watching this movie, and the moment that we move around, she's like, "Oh, is it time to play?" She's knocking stuff over, trying to get to
Future
this
episodes,
mosquito.
we maybe need to contain her.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Then you'll just be able to hear her faint meowing off in the distance. Yeah. So yeah, Lady Bird. Lady Bird. Yeah. I enjoyed it. Felt like it was good. It's very obviously a you movie. Like, yeah, I
It
could see it
completely
all
is.
over
Yeah.
all over it.
Yeah. Catholic school.
So much of it,
the
the
sort of
relationship
yearning to
between-
go, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why, but I saw an early trailer for this movie that featured a couple of the scenes of them driving the car and framed it like a road movie. Because I think there's like a point where I think they even it's the very first scene where they're talking about coming back from visiting colleges or
Oh,
whatever.
God. Can we just point out, Christine is so exasperated with her mother. She throws herself out of a moving
out
car.
of the moving car, yeah,
Like,
which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed like a road movie to me, which was so. I was like, okay, when we started watching it and like
then they're
5
home.
minutes in, it wasn't a road movie. I was like, what? Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was all I remembered about this movie was seeing a preview for it. Because I mean, I remember seeing it and thinking like, yeah, that looks like something I'd want to watch. Sure, like I'll give that. I'll look that up at some point. It was on Amazon Prime for a long time, and I just never watched it. And, you know, so I guess you got it. You got me. Fate has a way of.
I did. Well, and I have to say, this is probably something that I should watch every so often for the next few years to remind me how not to behave with my child. Because I feel like mothers and sons have a different relationship than mothers and daughters, but still that whole of like sniping and, well, I guess you just don't appreciate anything. And like thinking these things, don't say them.
Yes.
I don't want to do that. Oh, last thing. So I was briefly looking at some of the critics' reviews before we sat down to record this, and there was one reviewer who said, and of course the mother's name in this is Marion, which is, a little on the nose. She's a terrible parent and she has borderline personality disorder. I was like, oh God, ooh, that doesn't make me feel good. When I can relate to her, that's, ugh. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah,
I think she's not perfect.
Yeah, she's not. Yeah, she's got some stuff going on, and But I think everything she's doing is from a. I think it's from a place of caring. I just don't think she understands. She's missing the vital piece that I strive every day in my relationship with my son to include in my parenting, which is not just what you think is most important and will be the most helpful in this situation, but what they think will be the most helpful to them in that situation.
Yeah.
I don't think she ever thinks about or rarely thinks about what Lady Bird needs in any given situation. And she only thinks about what she would have wanted or what she can offer.
Yeah.
And it also feels like she is overcommitted to this idea of offering honesty. So, when she says things that seem snipey, like, oh, you're, are you tired because you're dragging your feet or whatever? Like,
Shouldn't have
like,
had that second helping of pasta. Like, oh,
yeah, things
God.
if the dress is too tight, you shouldn't.
Well, I noticed there's not a lot. She never tries to compromise. Like she's all pissed because Lady Bird goes to her boyfriend's family's Thanksgiving.
It's very passive aggressive about it.
Yeah,
constantly.
and there's never any like, okay, well, how can we make this work? Okay, well, we'll have their dinner's at 8. Okay, we'll do ours at 2, and I'm just like, you can't just pout like a child about it, like
Yeah, well,
anyway.
and also there's this aspect of, this is she's a senior in high school, and this is the first time this has been a conflict. Like, on some level, her mom has had it good, and like my mom had it good. There was never any.
Mine too.
There was never any conflict. No. I never needed to be at anybody else's Christmas or Thanksgiving. I by choice didn't go to any dance or graduation or school event. Like, there was never a point where she had to quote unquote share me with anybody anywhere except for with my dad's family, and that was all worked out years in advance. You know, like when I went to Christmas with them was worked out. I never went to Thanksgiving with my dad's family. You know, like it was all laid out and worked out, and that was all good. And that was the only aspect of sharing that she ever had to do. And you know, and I think Marion has had it good up to this point, and is struggling with the mere idea of anything but her things and her coming first.
I gotta say though, telling your parents you have it really easy with me because I could be blah blah blah. You know, I could have had boyfriends every single year. I could be doesn't ever go well.
No, like it's true. You know, but but isn't that no? But there's so many things.
That's not what they want to hear.
There are so many things in a relationship that you can say to someone that are true.
Yes,
but not a good thing.
Not a wise thing to say.
Not a wise thing to say.
Yeah. So.
Lady Bird.
Well, so that's Lady Bird. So you would recommend this?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. If you like any of the movies I compared this to, Juno, Garden State, Ghost World, if you like circa 2002 indie films about teens and young adult drama,
if you went to a Catholic school anytime between like 95 and 2005, if you're a woman who had a sometimes difficult relationship with your mother, if you're a mother who has a sometimes difficult relationship with your daughter, like there's many camps that this could fit in. If you're a girl who dated a guy in high school who turned out to be gay, there's that too. Which,
all these things.
Yeah. Well, folks, we would love to know what you think about Lady Bird. Did you snack on unconsecrated communion wafers, or did your parish use actual bread? Is it sacrilegious to eat that bread as a snack? The other, let us know. Let us know what you think. And if you are not Catholic and you were like, what the heck is a... Let us know. I will give you a tutorial.
She's got
I will make it make sense.
Got a tight 5.
I do. So drop us a line. You can tweet at us. You can send us an email. You can contact us on our Facebook page. Our handle is the same for all of those. YSMY Podcast. YSMY for you. Show me yours. You can tweet at us or send us a message on Twitter. Our email is at gmail.com, and we are on Facebook because we are nothing if not up to date with our social media things.
Sure.
We know what generation we are in, and that's what we're for.
Through the social media.
Yes. So, and we typically have new episodes every other Wednesday. So 2 weeks from today, no matter when you're listening, there'll be a new episode in your queue, and you can find us on most of your major podcast providers, specifically Apple Podcasts. While you're there, we would love it if you would rate, review, and subscribe. If you subscribe, you'll always get our latest episode right in your queue. And if you rate and review or tell your friends about us, more people will find out about us. And we can tell you about more things like more communion wafers and bread and things like that. So it's always fun. We're ecumenical here. We talk about lots of... No, we don't. We talk about Catholicism. That's pretty much it. Sometimes Judaism, but I don't know anything about it. So you're
very, very well equipped to talk about it.
So I'm not ecumenical at all.
That's a podcast staple. The amount that you're qualified to talk about something directly proportional to the amount you should talk about.
We're like Dunning-Kruger writ large.
Yes, the less you know, the more you should talk about.
Yes, anyway. But this month, we are doing an episode every week. And next week, Dave is hosting. And what are we watching next week, Dave?
We're doing the you're mouthing it to me. We're recording these out of order, so I have to remember which one. We're going to Sweden for Ari Aster's sophomore efforts, Midsummer, if you want to be pretentious. So Swedish cults and grief and visuals and hidden meanings and all sorts of cool trauma.
Man, I gotta say, all the movies that we picked for April are touching on grief points for me. It's like we planned it and we really didn't.
Yes.
Yeah. But I haven't burst into tears. So So I mentioned a couple episodes. No, last episode I mentioned my mom died a couple months ago, and we're coming up on 6 months. And if you've noticed that I'm somber lately, that's why. But life goes on. Life goes on.
Way to end us on a downer.
Well, but you know what? I had a nice moment one of the last times that I saw my mom in person, and I was able to say, for like, it's apropos to this, thank you for all the sacrifices you made to send me to college and so that I could choose where I wanted to go. Mm-hmm. And it means a whole lot. And I don't know if I've said thank you She was like, yes, you have. I was like, okay, but thank you again. Because,
But again,
you know,
yes.
so yeah. Anyway, okay. Well, that's
There you go.
that's Lady Bird. Really watch it. It's especially, and watch it with someone who went to Catholic school, because you will get way more of the jokes if you do. 'Cause
Yes.
It's pretty funny. We will see you next week with Midsummer.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io. Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marion Cowie going.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a cat gets on a table and comes over and says hello.